We carry out these protests, whatever happens with the Republican National Convention. We're here, people have come in from out of town, and they have something to say. And that something doesn't depend upon Dick Cheney and George Bush actually being here. It depends upon the policies that they espouse and continue to espouse, whether the convention is somewhat delayed or not.
Your main focus,
we are going forward.
Your main focus is the war in Iraq. What other issues are you?
Oh, there are many other issues. The war in Iraq is not our only war. There's a war in Afghanistan. The United States has military bases in approximately 120 countries. Between the wars and those military bases, we're spending a huge amount on the military budget, and I believe both candidates want to actually increase the size of our military permanently. This is not the way for us to go, and it's not the way we can afford. It also comes through in domestic policies. The first is the huge deficit we have. I don't think most people in the Democratic or Republican Party want to steal from their children, and that's what we're doing when we run these kind of deficits. That's not the kind of good people we have in this country. Most people don't promote wars for conquest or to steal oil or anything else. That's why our leaders always lie when they get us into a war, because the people in this country are better than this, and we want to appeal to the people across the spectrum to look at what our nation is doing and look at what we could do better. Also here in this country, we need to spend that money on real social needs. We need to have health care as a right, not as something that you get if you can afford it. We need to have better education. We need to cut down on the continually increasing prison population in this country. There are so many different, the people in this coalition come together, and many of them have been working on particular issues, but as a whole we can agree on many of those issues, and it comes down for many of us to a concentration of wealth and power in this nation that truly runs both parties and runs both our foreign policy and our domestic policy. And to a large extent, our demonstrations today and throughout this week will be targeting that concentration of wealth and power, which does far too much to run our lives.
Let's hear from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Next.
Yes, I would like to make 3 comments really quick. To the protester, you all need to take, if you're not pleased with that permit, you need to take that permit to the mayor. Second, McCain is making irrational decisions. Palin is number 1 of his irrational decisions, and his decision to come down here in Louisiana, we don't need him. He needs to go back up there at Minnesota and give a speech and let people see how stupid he is. We don't need him down here. Governor Jindal is doing a fine job, and as far as Palin being governor, there has been triple the amount of people that have evacuated from New Orleans than the people she run in Alaska. That's how big her executive experience is. McCain, go back to Minnesota and let me hear what you have to say.
Very well put. Thank you very much. And you're absolutely right. The presence of Bush or Cheney in Louisiana is not going to change the basic policies that led to the failures during Hurricane Katrina and afterwards. And you're also correct that when we don't like the permit that we got, and we had applied for a much different permit, the right thing to do is to go to the mayor, the city council members, and the courts. And we have done all of those and been stymied in that. But thank you for those suggestions and for your comments.
Queens, New York next, a supporter of Senator Obama.
Yes. I'm looking at all the different things that they're talking about in reference to Obama. No experience, not agent of change. He's not to be trusted. Yet still, McCain is the one that took us into all of this war thing here that exists. Gas is hiked up. The economy is messed up. And all of that is from the war. The money comes out of the Social Security bin. It's paying these people to kill other people. But yet still, Obama is not to be trusted. And, every time I sit down and I listen to all this, it sounds so, it's like these folks are so prejudiced. All of a sudden, this woman came out of nowhere and she's to be trusted. But yet still, Obama is not to be trusted. And if you ask them why, they can't tell you.
Thank you, Queens. David Bicking.
Yes, I mean, that's an interesting point. And I think Obama is criticized for a lot of invalid reasons and for a lot of very superficial reasons. That said, and our march today and throughout this week is going to be a very broad coalition, and it's going to include a number of people who support Obama for president. It's going to include some people who support Ron Paul for president, for instance. Primarily, I believe, and certainly in terms of the organizers, it will be people who oppose the candidates of both parties because their policies or their intent is so very similar. And while I respect your feelings on Obama, and I know that we certainly need a change, he has also decided or said that we should permanently increase the size of the U.S. military. And I don't think that's the direction most people want to go. When we are a nation that already spends more on the military than the rest of the world combined, it doesn't seem like the right direction is more. And so many people who protest here will be favoring Obama for a change, but a lot of the people don't see a change coming from either of those two parties. And if I may speak for a moment as a member of the Green Party, we certainly see a need for an alternative to both of those parties. The range of discourse in this nation is really very narrow because the mainstream media generally sees the range of views as to going from the Democratic side to the Republican side. And when we have the parties agreeing on a tremendous amount, for instance, they agree that, we need a United States military presence around the world. Well, they disagree somewhat on how to handle that or how to manage the war in Iraq. But we haven't been seeing strong voices from the leadership of the Democratic Party saying that this war was wrong, that it was immoral, that it was illegal. Until people recognize that, I'm afraid even if some troops are eventually removed from Iraq, we're going to be doing the same thing in other countries. So many of us, and again, speaking as somebody from the Green Party, I feel that we need an alternative to both of the major parties.
On to Kansas City, a supporter of Senator McCain.
Hi.
Good morning, Missouri.
Good morning, Santa Claus.
Good morning. I get that a lot.
Do you think it's going to look good for the Republicans, maybe give them an edge if the hurricane does cause significant damage, if the Republicans are holding like Red Cross telethons?
I don't think at this point that the Republican Party is going to be redeemed by what they do when there is this huge national and international attention that comes during the Republican National Convention. Whether they do well or do poorly, it will be seen as a political move. So I don't think it's going to make that much difference, and it certainly doesn't change our critique of the Republican Party and of our government in general and its unwillingness to respond to needs at home.
David Bickings, our guest. He's with the Minnesota Green Party. He is a protest organizer of some of the protests this week in St. Paul and Minneapolis. In practical terms, what does that role mean for you?
Well, there are many, many organizers working with many groups, and all of them deserve a tremendous amount of praise for the work that they've done and the way that we've brought people together. This planning has been going on for nearly 2 years and has been the result